Hey there, friends. Dave Paulides, Canine Missing Project. That's Huck. She is our executive producer. She's in a rowdy mood today. Huh, Huck? He's a good girl. He's a good girl. Yeah. Oh, that's a good puppy. That's a good puppy. Yeah, it's a good girl. He's a good girl. Oh, yeah, I know. You want me to show them this? Yes. This is Huck TV. Her channel. She's the boss. Alrighty. We've got a big show for you. Yes, that movie right there, Missing 411 National Parks, Washington State, coming out March 21st. Sign up and you can screen it live at missing411.com. Go to the online store and sign up. And this show today, I'm going to warn you, is a long one. Yes, there's a reason. There's a reason. This is the Marin County Cluster video number 3. And when I say it's going to be long, it's going to be intense. A lot of valuable information in it. So get your croissant, cup of coffee, cup of tea, whatever you like. Sit down, relax, put your feet up. Now, a couple of people have sent me some things in lately that need to be acknowledged. Hey Dave, I just wanted to reach out to you to send you this gift. I know you have had it rough lately with the recent deaths of your dad and Harvey Pratt. My dear mom passed away in 2024, was the author of 2 books that were once sold on Amazon and Wine Press. Wine Press went out of business several years ago and the books are out of print now, but she did go and do a recording in a studio to narrate her first book called Pebbles, Inspiration from an Awesome God. It's on 4 CDs and there's background music that is playing along as she's speaking. The books are a collection of short and inspirational stories that she wrote for the women's ministry at her church years ago. At her funeral, I had the funeral staff play one of my favorite stories called What Heaven Means to Me over the intercom near the end of the service. Most everyone thought it was a nice way to honor her. And he sent me this. If you're interested, you might get it. Jeff Jennings, thank you very much. That was a very thoughtful thing. Thank you. I will listen. And I got another one from a man named Alden from Switzerland. Hey Dave and Huck, greetings from Switzerland. Thank you for everything you do and to help me with my sleep. I love your videos. And he sent me a knife too, really nice knife. Thank you. I'm telling you friends, this audience is the best of the best. Yes. No sympathy is deep enough, the words are caring enough to take away the sorrow. Our deepest condolences, Shelley and Christian. Hey Dave and Huck, we are devoted followers of the Missing 411 and Can-Am Missing. Most recently, we watched American Sasquatch Man, Myth, and Monster. The movie was very informative. We loved it. I wanted to share a first-hand experience with you. When I was 24, I was up in Alaska working at Prince of Wales Island. I was injured on the job and flown to a hospital in the mainland. This is a really interesting story. Hang in there. The doctor in the ER said he had tried to save my life, but he couldn't save my leg, which was infected with gangrene. Before my leg could be amputated, a priest was called in to read me the last rites. I left my body and was looking down on myself. 2 nurses were working on me with bowls of ice for the fever. It was 106 degrees. I heard them say, then a bright light appeared. 2 angels walked out of the light and overshadowed the nurses. I was then returned to my body by the Lord. He was so brilliant, it was like looking into the sun. Not only did I live, but I still have my leg. shortly after that near-death event, I returned home to the Midwest to be told that a family friend took his own life. I went to the funeral home and was signing the guest book when this happened. A wave of what I will describe as energy swept over me with the force of a riptide. Then I heard loud and clear, "Finally someone knows I'm here." The family friend who had passed away then asked me to tell his dad that he was sorry, and that he loved him. I acknowledged the message and proceeded to find his dad. I told his dad about what had happened to me, and then my encounter with the spirit of his son. We sat and cried together. Hope you find this comfort from This Is Your Own Way. Death is only a transition. To live in Christ, to die in gain. Peace, Shelley. Wow. Powerful stuff. Powerful. Thank you, Shelley. Very grateful. Yeah, life is much more complex than I think we understand, folks. There's so many things going on in our world that are beyond me. But Marin County Cluster video number 3. And this time we're going to cover 3 disappearances in one video. And there's a reason for this. I usually don't do real long videos. But this one has to be done together for you to really grasp what is going on. Case number 1. I'm going to present them in the order that they occurred. The lady's name is Katherine Truitt. This is Katherine. 37 years old, went missing January 7th, 2010. Her birth date, I know some of you concerned about this, is October 11th, 78. She went missing at McClure's Beach in Point Reyes National Park. She was born and raised in Santa Rosa, graduate of UC Davis. Now, some of the stuff I'm going to tell you is going to come back later on, so try to remember. She was born and raised in Santa Rosa, graduate of UC Davis. And she was quite an advanced amateur photographer. After that, she went to the California Culinary Academy and became a graduate. And just so if you don't know that, that's like the premier school in the nation, at least on the West Coast, for learning to be a chef. At the time, she lived in Alameda, which is just a town right next to Oakland, California. And she was on disability for a neck injury that happened to her at work. When I was doing the background on Katherine, I found a San Francisco Chronicle story about a restaurant in San Francisco called Mexico DF. And the reviewer was talking about the whole restaurant, but then he spent, a third of the story talking about Katherine. And here's what he said. He said that pastry chef Katherine Truitt had made the best burnt caramel flan he had ever had. Now, I'm telling you that part of San Francisco is heavy with Mexican restaurants. And San Francisco at that time was known as one of the culinary capitals of the world. And for him to say that, she must have made an outstanding flan. Well, she drove. So on the day in question, Katherine told her roommate that she was going to go hiking. And her roommate knew that Katherine had gone to Point Reyes probably hundreds of times in her life to go hiking. It was her favorite place to go. Well, she drove her tan 2003 Ford Ranger pickup into the Point Reyes Park, and she didn't come home that night, which was unusual. Her roommate contacted authorities, gave a description of the vehicle. They didn't really do a lot with it right away. But eventually, a National Park Service employee saw the bulletin and said, hey, on January 10th, I remember seeing that described truck at a place called McClure's Beach. And on January 9th, on January 9th he saw it. On January 10th he went back, confirmed the truck was still there. And then he called National Park Police, and they started a search for Katherine at that point. U.S. Coast Guard, Marin County Sheriffs, California Rescue Dog Association, and a whole series of volunteer searchers came in to look. Supposedly, one of the dogs picked up her scent on the trail to the beach and tracked it down near the beach area. This was a narrow path to the beach. She'd been there dozens of times, knew the area well. It wasn't like she was a rookie. Well, they called in more search and rescue people, and it continued on January 11th. Massive search of the area. At the end of 2 days of searching, they didn't find one footprint, nothing in that area. Now, the more I looked into Katherine, I realized she's not an easy target. She was 6 feet tall, weighed 135 pounds. She's pretty thin for being as tall as she was, but a tall target isn't easy for somebody to take control over. Remember that. Now, her mom filed a formal missing person report with the Alameda Police Department on Katherine. And her roommates and her parents had the police come in and do a forensic search on her computer. And what they're looking for is maybe she was going to meet somebody out there, find out who that person was if she was going to meet them. Was she contemplating suicide? You know, what was her mind path? Maybe they could figure it out. Well, they went through, searched the whole computer. They found nothing. They found nothing that would point to anything unusual other than she went to Point Reyes all the time. Now, in 1980, in November of 1980, the park found 4 bodies in Point Reyes. Eventually, a man named David Carpenter was convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to life in prison in California. He was called the Trailside Killer. Now, in those instances, he didn't try to hide his bodies. He just killed them right there and left them. So, to think that somebody is carrying away Katherine, I don't think so. And neither did the Park Service, because they classify this as a missing person. Now, I've been to Point Reyes a bunch of times. Beautiful place. A place I don't go to December, January, and February because the weather is horrible. Windy, cold, blistery, right on the Pacific Ocean. Surprisingly, attendance at the park during those months is pretty low. Now, they get as many as 7 million people a year going through there. And why? Well, it's on the coast just north of San Francisco. You know, you can get to it from San Francisco real easy. So they had multiple days of searches with 80 plus people and canines. It's now been 16 years and nothing has been found of Katherine. Now, Point Reyes probably wasn't expecting much out of this. Probably didn't expect another call about something similar like this for another 10 years. Because things like this weren't normal there. But that's not what's happening. And when you start to think about a national park like this, and a woman who has been there hundreds of times, maybe went to take pictures, parks her car, her truck, and disappears, you find something eventually. Now, remember, this happened January 7th 2010. Okay. Well, let's fast forward to January 24th, 2010. Oh, just 17 days later. 17 days later. And this lady, her name is Sylvia Lange, 77 years old, lived in Nicasio, California, not that far from Point Reyes. But Sylvia was missing from a beach called North Beach at Point Reyes, 17 days after Katherine, and just 8 miles away. Now, when I heard this come in, way back when, I immediately, Freedom of Information Act the case, and this is another one of those cases where the National Park Service actually sent it to me. So what I'm going to tell you, it came off the reports. Now, everything I read about Sylvia, about her personal life, came off of articles in the newspaper and magazines about her. She served a life helping others. She was a super giving soul. She was a retired mental health RN. Probably one of the hardest jobs in the world. And she did it. She retired. She had a good income. And she loved dogs. So she went to work for the Canines Companions for Independence, training dogs so other people could have a little sense of independence with a dog. She loved dogs. Oh, and she was also a docent at Angel Island State Park in San Francisco Bay, and she also worked for the Nicasio Historical Society. The lady was super busy. Now, this is a picture of her and a few of her dogs. She loved her dogs, as we all do. Now, when you think about Sylvia, she retired as a mental health RN, serving others. Then she goes and trains dogs for others. Then she becomes a volunteer docent for others. Friends describe Sylvia as always upbeat and positive, and in good health. Now, on January 24th, 2010, the National Park Service gets a report that a dog is on a leash stuck on a series of rocks at North Beach. Well, the witness was at the Drake's Beach Visitor Center, and that's where National Parks Police responded to meet the witness, because they wanted the witness to take him out there and show him where this was so they could find it. The officer went out. The witness took the officer to the beach where, pay attention, there was a red Subaru parked in the parking lot adjacent to the beach. There were 2 additional dogs inside the Subaru, and the witness took the policeman down to the beach and showed him where a Labrador was at the end of this leash stuck on a rock. The officer got the lab, brought him back, and then the officer ran the license plate on the Subaru, and it came back to Sylvia. He had what everyone would do, is he had his dispatch center call her home, see if she was home, who had the car. Nobody answered, so dispatch center left a message. At about 4 p.m. that day, they hadn't had a call back from Sylvia's phone. And the National Park Service presumed at that point that Sylvia was missing. So they did a call-up for a search and rescue immediately to start for her. And they got a request into Marin County Search and Rescue to respond. And at 8 p.m. that night, the first search and rescue team started to arrive. And Sylvia's friends had heard this because they had members on search and rescue. The friends that arrived told the police officer that Sylvia would never, ever leave her dogs. And she would never hitchhike. And she loved those dogs just like they were her own sons and daughters. And they had last seen her earlier that day wearing a red raincoat. Now, on both the days that Katherine went missing and Sylvia went missing, it was raining out. Windy, cold, typical day at Point Reyes in January. Well, 9:30 that night, the National Park Service made a decision that they'd forcibly enter the car, inventory the inside, and get the dogs out that had been inside all day. Dogs got out, they're fine. They were taken care of. And inside they found her purse, wallet, small amount of money. And they found a time-stamped entry receipt for the park, January 24th, that day, at 11:41 a.m. Well, what they decided to do is immediately enter her name in the California Law Enforcement Telecommunications computer as a missing person. And they did. They also decided that there was going to be some follow-up they had to do to figure out what was going on, which was a good thing. The next day, National Park Police go to the Point Reyes bookstore where she got her entry receipt going into the park. And they talked to the clerk there, who happened to be the clerk working yesterday when Sylvia came in. And the clerk said, I remember her. She was upbeat, friendly, happy, and she was ecstatic because she found a trout calendar for her nephew. You know, when I heard that, I thought, my gosh, the last act the lady does is more giving. That's amazing. So the clerk said she was alone, just with her dogs. So the Rangers decide they're going to go to her house and search it. And they go there, and there's 2 more dogs inside the house. House was clean, well kept, everything was in order. They determined that she had been taking high blood pressure medicine and high cholesterol meds. Nothing unusual for a lady 77 years old. And they searched the house looking for a suicide note or any expression of depression, and found none. This was in their report. That's what they were looking for. I find that pretty bizarre. I'm sorry, I just do. Rather than looking for evidence that maybe she was meeting somebody or evidence of a crime, they're looking to prove that she was suicidal? Well, in the report, there was a list of buoy, out there in the middle of the ocean, buoy conditions in that area. At the time, it said that the wind gusts were 25 knots, water temperature was 54, air temperature 52, wave heights were 6.9 feet, low tide was between 12 and 12:30. NPS then had the names of all of Sylvia's friends. And a lot of them had come to help search for her. And they all interviewed her, asking them if she would take her life. Still trying to prove this suicide intention. And friends, I've talked to a lot of families that have lost somebody in a park. And this is common by National Park. They're trying to prove this suicide thing. Well, all the friends said, there's no way. Some people may take their life, but she's not going to. So that idea kind of was squashed. And when I read the entire report, it seemed to focus on the suicide theory. And other articles that were written about her said that she was entirely devoted to her dogs and to her volunteering. Now, what I want you to remember, if you had to find two people, two women, in the vast amount of experience that those two women had at Point Reyes, those two probably had more than any other two women there visiting the park that month. And those are the ones that disappear. So I went back and I did a vast history check at Point Reyes, looking for similar cases within a reasonable time frame of each other. There are none. There are none. So let's just think of these two cases, all right? Sylvia and Katherine. Two single women, not married, live alone. Bad weather's occurring. No witnesses. Each had been here hundreds of times. Canines had come in, can't find any tracks. Both in a cluster zone of missing people. Both missing in a national park. Oh, but friends, that's not all. You'd say, well, Dave, that's a lot right there. Oh, it is. But that's not all. Now, when you search for disappearances in national parks, you just get national park disappearances. But you see, Dave's not an idiot. Just because something happens, say 20 miles outside of a national park and it all fits with what I'm researching, I'm not going to ignore it. And this next case is one of those. So we got January 7th, Katherine disappears. And then January 24th, when Sylvia disappears. And now, 2 days later, January 26th. Friends, I couldn't believe it when I found it. Now, a lot of articles in the Bay Area talked about Sylvia and Katherine's disappearance and questioned whether something criminal is going on and the Park Service isn't acknowledging it. Nobody added in what I'm going to tell you. Case number 3, Erica Shane, 34 years old. Remember, Katherine was 37. The similarities are going to blow you away. Erica, 34, missing January 26, 2010. The location of the incident is a place called Cazadero, California. 18 miles north of Point Reyes, 35 miles north of Mount Tamalpais, 5 miles east of the Pacific Ocean. Now, it's a map I did for you. Sylvia, Katherine, Shane. Right around in here, this area, Mount Tamalpais. So this cluster zone goes like this. Now all of these are in Marin County. This is in Sonoma County. And even though it's outside of Marin, this is still in because the mileage factor is not that far away. Got it? 8 miles apart. Now, this story, it's pretty bizarre, folks. Cazadero is this little city in the middle of nowhere, up in the mountains. So, Point Reyes National Park, 35 miles from where this incident happened. Erica lived in a small city called Glen Ellen. Beautiful city. 40 miles southeast of Cazadero. She lived on a friend's property. Beautiful piece of property. Flowers everywhere. They had these little bungalows that she lived in on the property alone. Now, Erica, smart. She was unemployed spent much of her time volunteering for a wine country nonprofit. She was scheduled to work on the January 21st, 22nd, but didn't show up. And people didn't really think much about it because she was so reliable. They thought she must have been sick. She was a 93 graduate of Morrison High School in Santa Rosa. Are you paying attention? She went to Cal Poly for college, transferred, and ended up graduating from UC Santa Cruz with a degree in political science. Now, during her college years, she spent part of that time studying in Budapest. That should click in your mind. I did a couple stories about Budapest. And she's the youngest of two daughters. In 2003, she lived in San Francisco with a friend as a baker. Then she worked for a company called Hughes Futrell. She told others that she wanted to improve her fundraising skills and went to work for the wine country nonprofit. She had 2 birds as pets. Now, Erica was pretty much a stud, too. And I mean that in a nice way. In 2009, she completed the Ukiah Triathlon. And that is going to be an important point. Triathlon, 3 sports: cycling, running, swimming. And you have to be good at each one. Her friend said she loved bicycling, did it a lot. But then she got good at swimming and running. On January 26th, at about 3 in the afternoon, the California Highway Patrol gets a call that a vehicle is partially blocking a roadway in a wooded section of Cazadero. And they need a unit to go there and tow it or move it or something. Well, the CHP didn't have any units available, so they called the Sonoma County Sheriff and asked them to go out and check it out. Typical. So Sonoma County sent a deputy. The spokesman for Sonoma County at the time is a lieutenant named Chris Spolano. He stated in the paper that the car was parked at an unusual spot, because just down the road from where the car was a natural parking place, but this car was parked partially in the road, partially blocking a direction of travel. The deputy looked around. Nobody was around the car. No damage to it. But he noticed that there was a path leading right off the back side of the car that went into the woods adjacent to a creek. Deputy was smart. He goes, I think I'm going to walk up that path a little bit and see what happened. Just check it out. So there was some water in the creek, and he walks up there. He doesn't walk far, and he sees a woman's body in the creek, in the water. Oh, it's Erica. She's not moving. The deputy runs down, pulls her out of the water. She's not moving, and he starts CPR. And he also calls Fort Ross Fire Department to respond. Now, Fort Ross, quite a distance. This deputy had to do CPR for a while. Fort Ross arrives, and they declare that Shane is deceased. Her car was a Subaru, registered to Erica. It was never made clear in any of the reports how long she was in that water. But deputies know that if you're deceased for a long period of time, you get rigor mortis, you get lividity, where the settling of water in the body, blood in the body. So the body must not have had that, otherwise he wouldn't have done CPR. So she couldn't have been there very long. And I don't know how long the response time was from the time the CHP was called till he arrived, which could be a couple hours. You don't know. But I've thought about this a lot. What would cause somebody to pull to the side of the road quickly, not park safely, and jump out? I've thought about the times I've done that. And for me, it was always something wildlife related, like a beautiful buck or a moose. And I jumped out, tried to get a picture of it. Is that what happened? Did she see something that crossed the road that caught her attention? And then I thought about it more. Well, on January 27th, Spillane, the lieutenant, was interviewed again by the press. And he had stated earlier that they believed that she drowned. Okay, yeah, a triathlete drowning in a little creek. Okay, well, whatever. So Spillane stated, quote, "It may be a drowning, but how did she get in there?" He says, "We don't want to presume this was an accident and overlook something." They knew this was odd. They knew it was unusual. They knew it. Option number 2 came to my head. What if she was ran off the road? What if a car pulled in front of her to stop her and she knew she was trapped, so she jumped out and ran? There was no damage to the car. Now, I would think maybe all of those things could apply, except Dave's not an idiot. Here's the map. 3 cases in less than a month. Let's go through this. The women, first of all the victims were women. That's unusual right there. Ages 34, 37, and 77. They all lived a single lifestyle. 2 of them were bakers at some point in their life, Katherine and Erica. Katherine was raised in Santa Rosa, as was Erica. All 3 of the incidents happened in or around water. Only 1 victim was found, Erica. 2 of the 3 women drove Subarus, Sylvia and Erica. All were alone when the disappearances happened. Now, you guys are smart. First of all, all these happened in a cluster zone. I know a lot of you don't believe me when I say water is one of the cohesive factors in all of the disappearances. But I'm afraid it is. And I don't see how you could deny it here. Now, is this all a mere coincidence, these 3 disappearances? I can guarantee to you that nobody in Erica's case made any relationship to Sylvia or Katherine's disappearance. And I've read a lot of these articles. Now, a lot of articles in the San Francisco Bay Area easily associated Katherine and Sylvia's, but nobody looked at this case. Now, the deputy understood that there was something wrong. But again, Sylvia and Katherine. Quite an age difference there. But both of them really loved Point Reyes. Both of them loved the ocean. Sylvia loved her dogs. Katherine loved photography. What is going on here, folks? Where are these 2 ladies? You can say what you want, but I do believe in my heart that all three of these are associated. Time, space, sexes, lack of witnesses, lack of a body. It bothers me. It always bothers me, these things. But I'm going to, this map, I'm going to fill it up with disappearances as we go on. Now, the first two cases happened down in this area, but don't get blurred by the fact that this is all Marin County. This is the only one outside of Marin County. All the other cases in Marin County. So, and remember, Golden Gate Bridge, 2,000 suicides. San Francisco right here. Remember the couple took off from San Rafael Airport. Nicasio is where Sylvia lived. I greatly appreciate you guys being here. Please share this video. Get it out there. Let others see what we're doing. And kindness. Takes nothing to be kind. As Huck would say, woof, woof. She's looking at me going, come on, Dad, hurry up. You be safe. Paulides out.